Ash and smoke billow into the air above Mount Tongariro on New Zealand's North Island, the aftermath of a volcanic eruption, the first here since 1897. The national park where it happened is a popular tourist attraction. It can be seen in the Lord of the Rings films. Now a thick layer of ash coats the surrounding landscape. Nobody was injured by the eruption, but many people have decided to leave the area. Brent Crow is the local police commander.
We are urging all local residents to remain calm, to check their water supplies to ensure that they're not contaminated.
Scientists say they'd noticed increased seismic activity below the mountain for weeks, but had no specific warning before the volcano blew. It's too early to say whether this is a one-off or the start of a new cycle of activity.
The eruption itself just gave us no warning whatsoever. It just snuck up on us. And if further hydrothermal driven eruptions occur, they could well be the same.
You can imagine waiting on it just before you take it off on an aircraft, and the sound to when those engines at full speed, that's what we heard.
Hiroshima? Yes, no, that's what the cloud looked like, Hiroshima.
We begin tonight with fears of a big volcanic eruption. Let's go now to Peter in Taupō. Peter.
Yes, here at the command centre, they're closely monitoring the reawakened Tongariro volcano. Experts say it could blow again at any time with little or no warning after it erupted last night. It was on Tongariro's northern side at the Te Mare crater. The blast threw rocks a kilometre into the air and spewed ash as far as Napier and other areas in the central North Island. Now we have reporters across the region with first-hand accounts of the eruption, its aftermath and travel disruption, and we'll go live to them shortly. But first, these are the closest pictures so far to the eruption blast zone. They were released at an emergency briefing this afternoon and show where rocks crashed through the Ketetahi Hut on Mount Tongariro. It's left heavy damage with holes through the roof, bunk beds and the floor. Fortunately, no one was in the hut at the time. It's now closed along with 3 others around the mountain. The pictures also show the popular Tongariro crossing walking track that's been damaged by boulders up to 1 metre round, and the track is closed now too. So let's join Kim Vanell with the action on the mountain that's been asleep for more than 100 years. Kim.
Good evening, I'm joining you from State Highway 1. This is the main trunk line through the central North Island, but it had to be closed today as Mount Tongariro made itself known. Now, there have been more than 100 small earthquakes under the mountain over the past month, but there was no escalation in volcanic activity leading up to last night's eruption. Essentially, it came out of the blue.
Low cloud makes it hard to spot the plumes of ash Tongariro has thrown out. But the ash-covered ridgeline is evidence this mountain has burst back into life after 115 years.
The eruption itself just gave us no warning whatsoever. It just snuck up on us. And if further hydrothermal driven eruptions occur, they could well be the same.
Hydrothermal means the eruption was driven by steam rather than molten magma. It's happened after a month of small but frequent underground rumblings.
If the unrest episode that we've seen for the last 2 or 3 weeks continues and is expanded, we could see the volcano change from the hydrothermal towards the magmatic type activity, but we're not seeing any indication of that at the moment.
That magmatic activity, known more simply as a lava eruption, would be worst case scenario, but police say they're prepared for any eventuality.
At this stage we expect the situation to stabilise. If there's any escalation in that situation, we will monitor it and come up with an appropriate response.
Roads were closed around the mountain, and even before the sun was up, our cameras were catching the fallout.
There's quite a bit of ash on the road. It's probably about a centimetre, maybe a couple of centimetres deep on the side of the road. Probably one of the first things you notice is that it has quite a distinctive smell. You can definitely smell the sulphur even though you can't see anything.
Then at first light, search and rescue began checking the popular Tongariro tracks and huts.
4 huts, the Tongariro Alpine Crossing and part of the Tongariro Northern Circuit, are currently closed for public use.
Later in the morning, roads reopened and residents spoke of what they'd experienced.
It shot out towards the left, towards the desert road, and then the next big bang it went out towards the right, towards Ketetahi, and then the third bang it went straight up in the air, but it looked like it was coming this way, and just minutes later, and then we got all the ash on the ground.
The ash cloud has made its way east over State Highway 1 here, travelling all the way to the Hawke's Bay. A very small layer of ash has reportedly made ground near Napier.
Risk assessments will be carried out over the next 36 hours to determine if and when Tongariro tracks and huts can reopen, but locals are preparing just in case.
Anything can happen from now on in, so we're all on tenterhooks right now. We've just been into town to stock up.
Authorities too know this reawakened mountain is full of surprises.
There are 3 main scenarios that could play out. One is that last night's eruption was just a one-off event, or there could be more small hydrothermal eruptions to come. The last scenario, and this really is worst case, is that this is the beginning of a larger eruptive sequence.
Kim Bonnell, thank you.
With us now by phone is GNS Science Duty volcanologist Michael Rosenberg. Good morning, Michael. I hear that this eruption caught everyone by surprise.
Well, it did really. We've been recording the small earthquakes underneath Tongariro for about the last 3 or 4 weeks, and we've seen those earthquakes declining, and apparently from that low level of background, all of a sudden we've got an eruption.
So this is the first eruption for Mount Tongariro in 100 years. The status update, it's gone from a 1 to a 2. What does that mean?
It means there's a significant local eruptions going on, and accordingly there's a definite hazard in that area.
So is this over? What do you do now? How do you monitor the volcano's activities?
Well, we definitely can't say it's over. Certainly at the moment the activity is pretty quiet, but this might just be a quiet period, and we could expect it to start again at any time. So we're watching things very closely, and just keep everybody updated as things progress.
Obviously this eruption happened at 11:50 p.m. last night in the darkness. What did eyewitnesses say they saw and heard?
Well, we had reports from people living close to the area. They talked about seeing red-hot rocks flying through the air, hearing loud explosions, and then ash falling on the road north of Tongariro, and certainly on the desert road. We also had some reports from aviation traffic of quite high ash plumes. So, a small eruption, and it may have only lasted a few tens of minutes at this stage, but certainly exciting times for the people down there.
All right, Michael Rosenberg, volcanologist, thank you for that. Let's go now to Peter for more details.
Yes, good morning. Mount Tongariro in the central North Island has erupted overnight. The eruption occurred at 10 minutes to midnight at the Te Mare craters near the Ketetahi Hot Springs on the northern side of the mountain. No injuries or damage have been reported. Witnesses report red-hot rocks being thrown into the air, seeing lightning and hearing loud explosions. There is also a distinct smell of sulphur in the air. Around 5 centimetres of ash has fallen on State Highway 46 around Mount Tongariro. The road has been closed because of poor visibility, as has the desert road section of State Highway 1. GNS Science say the eruption was unexpected and it's unknown how it will progress. Scientists continue to monitor the situation. At this stage, Air New Zealand say it's not expecting any delays or cancellations to its domestic services as a result of the eruption. The last time Mount Tongariro erupted was in 1897. Our cameraman at the scene says it's very eerie around the mountain. The landscape is covered in ash.
Probably one of the first things you notice is that it has quite a distinctive smell. You can definitely smell the sulphur even though you can't see anything. It's quite an overcast night, so you can't really see the mountain at all, but you can definitely smell the sulphur as you get closer and closer to the mountain, especially around sort of Ketetahi Springs. As they just come through the closed road, State Highway 46, fairly decent amount of ash on the road, sort of a centimetre, a couple of centimetres, in and around the trees and stuff.
Now, Civil Defence says the volcanic activity could pose a threat to people in the Waikato, Hawke's Bay, Gisborne, Manawatu-Wanganui, Bay of Plenty and Taranaki regions. It advises people living in or near the affected area to stay indoors. Doors and windows should also be closed. If caught in a volcanic ashfall, wear a dust mask or use a cloth over your nose and mouth. The effects of a volcanic eruption can be experienced many kilometres away from a volcano. There are no evacuation orders in place, but some people are choosing to leave the area. Scientists are closely monitoring the situation, and Civil Defence will hold a media briefing later on this morning.